Hello and welcome to FPL Mate, your best mate for fantasy Premier League content for the 2022-23 season. My name is Dan, and I thought we'd do another player-by-player list style video. I haven't done one in a few days, and I do quite like them, and I've got all the templates for them, and the templates look really cool, so I thought we'd go for that today. Today we're doing players who I believe could be potential traps for the beginning of this season. So players that I am personally not interested in going for at the beginning of the season, that I am quite worried could actually be trolly players, quite trappy players. Now, guys, you are definitely going to disagree with me because I've picked on purpose players that are already highly owned, players that a lot of people are talking about already and engaging with, and a lot of you guys are going to have some of these players in your teams already. You're going to disagree with me, and that's absolutely fine. I just want you guys to know that this is just very much my opinion, very much players that I personally wouldn't go for, and if you feel differently, that's absolutely fine. I don't want to really tell you do not go for these players. That's not what this video is about. It's more about kind of just wondering, could these players actually kind of flop? Maybe, potentially. I think they could, and I wouldn't go for them personally. But there we go, guys. If you do enjoy this video, please do leave a like. Probably going to need the likes because, you know, there's going to be maybe some negative feedback on this video if I've got your players in this list, which I probably do. And subscribe as well if you're new around here. Really do appreciate that. Aiming to get 150,000 subscribers by game week 1. Can we do it? Probably not, but let's see. Without further ado, guys, let's get on with the list. All right, I'm going to start you off with Darwin Nunez at Liverpool. Yeah, you're probably not going to be too happy if you're a Liverpool fan. Look, this is a big thing that I feel about FPL is sometimes at the beginning of the season, we get really excited about new players coming into our team and we really just want to pick them. And I completely understand that. And from a fun perspective, Darwin Nunez, hell yeah, he's a fun player. And you know what? We're probably going to look back at the end of the season and say, Darwin, what a player. You know, he's probably going to have a really good season for Liverpool. But going into the beginning of the season, he does seem a little bit risky for 9 million. We're not 100% sure if he's going to start every game straight away. It may take a little while to integrate him into the team. Could be a little bit of rotation there. And that's not really what you want for 9 million when these Liverpool spots are just so precious already. You know, I speak about this pretty much every single video, but we're always going to have Salah. We're always going to have Trent Alexander-Arnold, and you're left with one other spot of who you're going to go for. And that third player is probably going to be either Diaz or Robertson. So where is the room for Darwin? To me, for a player as risky as this, I just would not touch it personally. I'm not really interested. So yeah, even though he had a fantastic season last year at Benfica in the Portuguese league, and I have no doubt he is going to become a very good Liverpool player, and we'll look back at this video and probably say, you know, haha, Dan, you were wrong. He's amazing. Yeah, he's going to be amazing, but I'm just saying for the beginning of the season, it just seems like far too much risk for me and not someone I'm personally interested in. All right, okay. This is the most controversial one. Trust me, it's uphill from here, or downhill, depending on how you look at it. But yeah, Bruno Guimarães, I'm just not completely convinced by this pick personally. And I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me on this one. And to be honest, I kind of want you guys to kind of tell me where I'm going wrong with my logic here, because I just can't really understand why so many people are going for him. I understand why some people would go for him, but he's literally one of the most popular players in FPL right now. And I don't think his popularity in FPL quite matches how good he is. So maybe slightly overhyped in my opinion. He's got two decent fixtures to start off. Nottingham Forest at home is a good fixture. Brighton away is not too bad either, but after that, it does go downhill. So it very much is a player for 2 game weeks, maybe, you know, 1.5 game weeks, really, because Brighton is not like an amazing fixture. He's 6 million. Yes, he scored a decent amount of goals last season, 5 goals, which, you know, definitely is nothing to be complaining about whatsoever. But the fact that last season he scored 5 goals from a really low XG, and that's more than he scored during his entire time at Lyon, it kind of does make me think, is this sustainable? Are these levels of returns? And these levels of return are not even kind of super high. They're very decent, don't get me wrong. They're not super high. But even at this level, are they going to be sustainable? And where is Bruno actually going to fit into the Newcastle system in the current season? A lot of the times when we saw Bruno Guimarães scoring last season was when they didn't have a Callum Wilson. They didn't have a striker. They didn't have a forward. So the kind of onus of the goal scoring in many ways was passed on to the midfielders. But going into this new season, we're going to see Newcastle probably sign a new right winger. We're going to have Callum Wilson fit and firing for the beginning of the season. Is it going to be a Bruno Guimarães' responsibility to score goals? Is he going to be playing as more of a deep lying kind of playmaker, I guess, or a box-to-box midfielder? at that kind, in that kind of role, is that really what we want? I'm not personally convinced by this one. I know a few of you guys are going to agree, and to be honest, disagree. And to be honest, I would like to hear some of your arguments as to why you think Bruno Guimaraes is going to have a really good season. Yeah, lay it on me. I would love to be proven wrong on this one, but yeah, I just personally just don't really understand the hype. All right, one player I do think is overhyped is Coutinho, unfortunately. Yes, I think he's a really good football player, don't get me wrong, but I'm just really not quite sure. He's another one of those players who has 2 good opening fixtures, but then it really does go downhill after that. So I'm wondering, is Coutinho a player people are getting with a little bit short-term thinking in mind? But also, last season, I know he got 5 goals and 3 assists, but people forget that the 5 goals and 3 assists kind of occurred over the space of 3 matches, and every other match, you know, he played 19 games. He got so many blanks last season. I think he got sort of 15 or I think it was 15 blanks last season. And I think something like 11 of those were all in a row where he was just consistently scoring 1 point, 2 point, 2.3 point, 1.2 point over and over again for 11 consecutive game weeks. And that's certainly not what we want because, like I said, the returns that he did get were in very short bursts. I think 2 of the games where he did get multiple returns and 10-pointer pluses were in games against Leeds United. And the other one, I think, was against someone like Watford or Norwich or something like that. One of the relegated teams. So yeah, it does make me kind of wonder, is he all that he's cracked up to be in terms of an FPL asset? Can he go missing for game weeks and game weeks at a time? Yeah, he probably can. And more importantly, I think, is the 7 million price point. There's not really much going on there. So if you do decide to go for Coutinho and it all goes wrong, who are you going to swap Coutinho for? Because there's not really many players around the 7 million point that you can easily swap him to. You know, maybe Zaha, possibly Jack Grealish, but after that, there's not really anything going on there. So, difficult price point, short-term thinking with the fixtures, and a player that we know can blank for weeks and weeks on end with absolutely no return. So, for me, you know, definitely a player to avoid. Alright, we've got VESTERGAARD now, the most popular 4 million defender in the game. I think he's in something like 15 to 20% of FPL teams at the moment, which is just absolutely crazy. He's on a lot of people's benches, and he shouldn't be. In my opinion, he absolutely shouldn't be. Last season, he did play a few games, but only kind of out of desperation, it seemed, in many ways, because Leicester had so many defensive injuries in the centre-back position. We know now that VESTERGAARD is very much out of Leicester's plans. Even if everyone is fit at Leicester, VESTERGAARD is not going to play. He's probably like the 5th choice centre-back at this point, and they only played with 2 centre-backs at the moment, so that's not very good. And they're probably actually looking to sell VESTERGAARD as well, kind of offload him at some point or another, because he's just not in the Leicester plans whatsoever. So what we've got here is a 4 million defender who's not going to be doing anything. Like, at least I think the great thing about FPL is we can sometimes identify 4 million defenders that can actually do something, actually can get you some points, who actually could potentially start, and some of them are looking amazing already. Nico Williams springs to mind immediately as a defender that's 4 million, who's going to be playing near enough every game and has potential for goal returns, has potential for clean sheets as well, which is actually pretty decent. It's pretty decent when you think about it that way. Maybe Patterson as well at Everton, the right back there. So yeah, 4 million defenders, there are actually some okay options that you could go for. So I don't see why you'd go for VESTERGAARD, who we know is not going to play, who we know he could potentially be sold, when we could go for some of these other great 4 million options who are actually going to play and could potentially be not just a great substitute, not just a great backup option for you, but a player who you could potentially end up playing and, you know, starting in your first 11. It's possible. It's not going to happen with VESTERGAARD. KULUSEVSKI, probably a bit of a controversial one, but the reason why I say this is because out of the 8 million midfielders, I do feel like KULUSEVSKI is one of the weaker ones. Now, obviously, he had a phenomenal season last season. I don't want to take that away from him whatsoever, and he was in my FPL team pretty much the whole time in the second half of last season. Like, what a player. Incredible, got a great future ahead of him as well. Now, the problem is, I've been reading a lot kind of on Spurs forums and you know, comments from Spurs fans saying that potentially Richarlison has signed not just to sit on the bench, who actually he's going to have some game time, and it's probably KULUSEVSKI whose minutes is at most at risk, and we could see the position on the right wing, kind of KULUSEVSKI and Richarlison sharing minutes 50-50. Now, if KULUSEVSKI is, you know, 6 million, 6.5 million, you're probably okay with that. You're probably, you know, more than willing to take the risk and say, you know, KULUSEVSKI is going to play you know, maybe he plays 50, 60% of the time, maybe even 70% of the time, and, you know, maybe he comes off the bench at other points of the time, and that's probably your best case scenario, and that's not a bad scenario, but it's not a great scenario, really, for an 8 million kind of midfielder when you've got players like Saka, Mason Mount, you've got Jesus if you want to move the money to the forward position, you've got Bowen at 8.5, you've got players like Foden, for example. There's just so many good 8 million options. But I don't feel like Kulusevski, if he is as rotation risk as I'm being told he is, he just does not seem worth it. I know people want to cover that Spurs attack. I just don't feel like Kulusevski is the way to do that. But look, Spurs fans, again, get in the comments. Tell me what you think about this. I'm only going by what I've been told. Hopefully, I'm correct. Otherwise, I'll look pretty foolish. But you never know. I'm willing to be proven wrong, as always. Right, Bernardo Silva is a player a few people I've seen are going for, kind of trying to get a kind of cheap way into the Man City attack. Man City obviously have some nice fixtures. Bournemouth at home in Game Week 2. They've got Nottingham Forest, I believe, in Game Week 5 as well. So, understandably, people want to get a Manchester City attacker. The problem is Bernardo Silva is just not the way to do it. Now, if you look at last season's stats, 8 goals and 8 assists, that's pretty decent. That's pretty decent returns for a 7 million midfielder. But what you probably, well, we may remember is that all of these returns, or most of these returns anyway, did occur in the first half of the season when there wasn't really many options for Manchester City. You know, De Bruyne wasn't really around, and if he was around, he wasn't firing, or he was just playing minutes off the bench and stuff like that. You know, there was a kind of absence of a striker, so Bernardo Silva was often played as a false 9. But what we basically saw is Bernardo Silva playing either as a false 9 or the most advanced in the midfield. And in the second half of the season, when KDB came into the team, what we saw is Bernardo Silva dropped much, much deeper and was not anywhere near as involved in the attacking play. And suddenly, his attacking returns, his goals, his assists, they just weren't anywhere to be seen anymore. They're just completely gone. Now, going into this new season, we know that, you know, Bernardo Silva is probably not going to be playing as a false 9. Haaland, his side, there's Julian Alvarez as well who can play there. In terms of the midfield, KDB, he's available for the start of the season, which is fantastic news for City, but does mean that Bernardo Silva is going to have to play a slightly more reserved role. So, all of these factors, new signings included, coming into the club, it does look like Bernardo Silva is going to have another season where he is going to be having to, unfortunately, sit back a little bit deeper and not get goal returns. Now, unless De Bruyne gets injured at some point in the season, Bernardo, I just think, is just not going to be an option. And going into Game Week 1 with Bernardo, I think is going to be a mistake. I think you're going to get much better returns, even going for players cheaper than him, playing for worse teams, because at least those players will be more involved in the attacking play. Right, let's throw a goalkeeper into the mix for good measure. Aaron Ramsdale as a goalkeeper. I'm not really feeling him. I know a lot of people are going for him. I know it's a fairly popular goalkeeper choice. Maybe that's just Arsenal fans, but I'm an Arsenal fan myself, and I have to say I can never say I've considered Ramsdale for a moment so far this preseason. Second half of last season didn't look so good, was conceding a few more goals than perhaps he should have done. Wasn't making anywhere near as many saves, and Arsenal weren't keeping as many clean sheets. Arsenal have not strengthened defensively at all, potentially getting worse defensively going into the new season. So we could actually see Arsenal conceding more goals, Ramsdale not making as many saves if it's a continuation of the end of last season. And I just feel like if you do want to go into Arsenal's defence, and I don't blame you if you do, Arsenal have some great fixtures at the start of the season. You've got 4.5 million defenders that are right there for the taking for you. So I would go for a Tomiyasu or a Ben White, or, you know, you can go for a Gabriel or a Tierney. They're 5 million as well. We're probably going to get a decent amount of points more than Ramsdale, and maybe just stick to a 4.5 million goalkeeper, maybe a different 5 million goalkeeper. You know, I still like the look of Mendy. I still like the look of Nick Pope at Newcastle as well. Just don't feel like at 5 million, he's the right goalkeeper to go for in your FPL teams. All right, finally, I'm going to pick on Declan Rice, but what I really mean here is the 5 million defensive style midfielders. I know Rice isn't, you know, a defensive midfielder, but what he is definitely not a player whose role in the team is to score and goals and create. Typically, is it? I know we see the occasional run, but players like Declan Rice, players like Kante, people go for these players every year in FPL, and every year they don't score any points whatsoever and turn out to be a real waste of money. And the reason they're a waste of money is because you can get a 4.5 million, you know, midfielder. The 4.5 million midfielder that's emerged at the moment is Andreas Pereira, who's just listed as Andreas in FPL. Who's going to be playing for Fulham. He's going to be starting. We probably thinking most games, and actually get some goals and get some assists, and you can get him for 0.5 cheaper. So spending an extra 0.5 million on a Rice or a Kante or, you know, a Højbjerg maybe, I think he's probably going to be in the region of 5 million. I haven't checked. But these kind of players, these 5 million defensive midfielders, just are never value for money at all. Never worth going for. You may as well pick a 4.5 million midfielder who maybe just ticks along with 2 pointers, maybe gets the occasional goal return, but you know, they're going to score similarly to these 5 million players anyway, so you've wasted 0.5 million. Even if you have a spare 0.5 million in the bank, I would just say, just keep it in the bank, save it for a rainy day, save it for a future game week. It's just no point going for these kinds of 5 million at midfielders. They just do not get goal returns whatsoever. It's just not worth your time. I strongly advise against them. And there we go, guys. Those are 8 players that I personally will be looking to avoid at the beginning of the season. Maybe you're going to agree with some of them. Maybe you're going to disagree with some of them. Love to hear a bit of discussion in the comment section, of course. And I'll do my best to certainly read all of the replies and respond to some of them as well. But if you did enjoy this video, please do leave a like. It really does help out the channel so much. Please do subscribe. Hopefully we can reach our subscriber target. I'm not that hopeful, but oh well. And yeah, like I always say, plenty more FPL comments to come. We've got a decent backlog of FPL content as well. Go check out some of the other videos we've made on the new season. You're hopefully going to enjoy them. And that's pretty much it from me, guys. So thank you once again so much for watching, and I will see you later, mates. Bye-bye.